I've always gotten along with President Putin. I have had a great relationship with him. And he went through the Russia hoax, too. You know, I mean, it was, we used to talk about it. We used to say, you know, it's too bad we really can't do anything between our country. Because if we did, they'd say, oh, it's, you know, some. Look, I was tough on Putin because I was the one that closed up Nord Stream, and Biden came along and opened it up. I was very tough on Putin in one way, but we got along very well. And I never really thought this would happen. I thought we'd be able to negotiate something out. And maybe that'll still happen, but it's very late down the process. So I'm disappointed. And, you know, the funny thing is that their economy isn't that big, and it's having a hard time right now. But it's a relatively small economy. A strong military, but strong economy. And it used to be a strong economy. Now it's not. He's going through a lot. Economically, it's not easy, but it's pretty small, you know, compared to that magnificent size of that land. The land is massive. It's got, I guess, 9 time zones or something. It's a massive piece of land. Russia could be so rich. It could be so rich. It could be thriving like practically no other country. And they're holding that back because we can't. He wants to do trade deals with us. He talks about it all the time. He wanted to. And I envision that a lot of trade with Russia. They have a lot of valuable things. When you talk about rare earth, they have serious rare earth, right? They have just about every form you can have. So, you know, Russia could be so rich right now. Instead, they spend all their money on war. They spend everything on war and killing people, and it doesn't make sense to me. I thought he would want to end this thing quickly. I really felt it was going to end, but every time I think it's going to end, he kills people.
What's up, guys? Welcome to an unusual Monday noontime podcast. Don't have these too often, but I didn't do a stream last night. I didn't want to let it get away from me because I still owe you guys a stream from like 2 weeks ago. But we have some things to talk about this week. Not a lot of happy stuff on the Trump front, but good news. Good news. Republicans are going to win next year. And that is the story. We've been seeing lots of stories like these. Here is just one of several. This came out just a couple days ago. More like a blue trickle. Dems are hoping for a blue wave that might not happen. And there is a lot of reasons for that. The main reason being that Democrats are completely unable to face the ideological box they put themselves in, taking stands on issues that the American people despise, like open borders, being soft on crime, and so on and so on. And that's great. That is great for Republicans, and it's especially great for principled conservatives because that means we get to actually litigate our issues. Because, you know, God forbid, we wouldn't want to lose majority in the Congress or the House or the Senate. We wouldn't want to jeopardize the Michigan State House or the governor's race or the state Senate race by, you know, not just blindly following the party line, but actually like thinking critically about things that are going on and maybe, you know, trying to bring the party more conservative, which we can actually do because guess what? It's going to be a great year for Republicans. So spaketh the media. And by the way, so also says Donald Trump himself. So given that fantastic news, all Trump talked about is how great he's doing in the polls, and Republicans are doing gangbusters, and it's wonderful and fantastic and good. So that means you don't need me to tell people to vote for Mike Rogers for U.S. Senate because guess what? The donors are supporting him, and all he needs is the donors. The donors, they're doing well in the polls, so there's no reason at all for Republicans to prostitute themselves and just say that we should support any old rhino, no matter how, you know, hawkish they are or how anti-Trump they are or how deep state they are or anything like that. So that's perfect news. That's great for us. We can carry on our mission. Speaking of which, by the way, I am now hard at work on a major Rescue Michigan relaunch. I know it's been a very quiet past few months for us. The main reason being because I know people don't like hearing me say all the bad news about what's going on with Trump on the stream, and I especially don't want to hurt my email list complaining about those things, even though they're true. You know, because I want to give people hope and positivity and things to fight for. And there are things out there to be done in that regard. So there is going to be more things coming soon on that, I promise. We are working on a major relaunch, and I'm looking forward to that in the near future, before the end of summer. But in the meantime, we do have some news to cover for this week. And again, I'm sure I'm not your only source of news, and some of these things you may have heard before. But I like to think I've got my own little spin on things. But yeah. Oh, here's something that also came out. I meant to point this out. There's another story that just came out in Breitbart. Fantastic brown nosers for Trump. Trump defines panicans, this dangerous people who can't handle pressure. The people who think all of the things that Trump is doing might be dangerous. We are ourselves dangerous. And Trump has given this interview where he talks about worrywarts freaking out during high-stakes political moments faced by the president and the nation. Why would anybody freak out over a high-stakes political moment? By the way, what is a high-stakes political moment? What does that mean exactly? Is a high-stakes political moment like a potentially dangerous decision, a possibly reckless decision that might cause a lot of pain and suffering for the American public? Like, I don't know. I like maybe like just putting extreme taxes on every country on the planet at once. Like that might cause some problems in the marketplace, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, so Trump is roasting these panicans. Panicans, a very, very catchy phrase, isn't it, guys? Don't you love that phrase? Panican just sounds perfect. Panicans were wrong again about whatever this was. Gunther Eagleman, TM, paid supporter for Trump, a paid shill. Trump was right again. The panicans were wrong. The economy is doing great. And if you disagree with that, you'll be fired from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which whatever about that. I know it's a nothing burger story. I know the Democrats are trying to make a big stink out of that. Oh, Trump fired some woman at the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he didn't like what the results were that she was giving him. Folks, no statistics coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics have ever been reasonable or realistic. They don't count in the unemployment numbers those who have been unemployed for more than a few months and just aren't seeking to go back to work again. They don't count those people as unemployed. Like of all the, as the old saying goes, there's lies, damn lies in statistics. And the most misleading, most pathologically lied about numbers always are economic numbers. So, whatever. All I'll say is, Trump's still a new presidency. It's still only been 6 months, 7 months, 6 months. So we shall see. Certainly 4 years from now, but even, come next year's election, we'll have a better idea of just how good things have been going with the Trump administration. And I should say, we should expect, for a lot of reasons, there to be major economic improvements, if for no other reason than because of the energy and environmental agencies. That would be Lee Zeldin at the EPA and, why am I blanking on the guy's name? Seth something or other, the Department of Transportation guy, who I think is now also heading up Space Force or something or other. But anyway, the point being, just deregulating, just cutting a lot of the red tape. One thing that Republicans, even run-of-the-mill Republicans, can manage to do is get out of the way on all the environmental restrictions and the anti-business stuff. And that alone, can do enormously good things for the economy. So we should expect that, but we'll always have to wonder how much more could have been done if only we, reined in the Federal Reserve, for example, or not spent hundreds of billions of dollars funding no-win wars, that kind of thing. But I guess we'll see. We'll get a referendum next year, guys. And I, for one, certainly hope Trump will succeed, despite himself. But the big story this week, there's been a few stories, but the big one, and it hasn't been covered like it's the big one. It's the big one is the escalating nuclear threats over tweets, over social media, which how crazy this is and how out of hand this has gotten is mind-boggling. One of the reasons, but probably the single biggest reason I was all in on supporting Trump and defeating the Democrats last year was that Joe Biden posed an existential threat to all life on planet Earth. Like, that's kind of a big thing. And that's what nuclear war is. Literally, the CIA estimated there was a more than 50% chance we would have a nuclear war with Russia by the end of Biden's term. And the Biden administration's analysis of that intelligence was, yeah, okay, we're ready for a nuclear war with Russia. That's what they said. We're ready for a nuclear war with Russia. Now, I don't know if you guys are ready for a nuclear war with Russia. If you're not, I have a simple method for you to get ready for a nuclear war. Here's what you do. Go down to your local liquor store, buy lots of big bottles of expensive booze. You won't need your money anymore. And try to drink yourself into a coma so that you will die painlessly. Because that's the only way a nuclear war ends, is either by being killed by the nuclear bombs or by being killed in the post-apocalyptic hellscape that follows. That's what nuclear war is. There's no winner in a nuclear war. So we're gonna look at that in a little bit more detail right now. So first off, let's talk about how things started. And it started with this post by none other than Dmitry Medvedev, who is, for those who don't know, it's in his little bio on the right-hand side right here, Deputy Chair of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, the third president of Russia, 2000 to 2012. So, according to Trump, he's just some kind of washed-up politician, I guess. He's a failed former president, Trump called him at some point. And he is indeed the third president of Russia, the second and fourth being Putin. You see, Russia had term limits at one point. And so what happened was Dmitry Medvedev was, I want to say, the prime minister or something like that. I don't know if they have that role, but a subordinate role between president and the head of the legislature. And so when Putin's term limits came about, they said you could only serve so many terms consecutively. So for the term from 2000 to 2012, Medvedev and Putin just swapped. They just swapped places. So Medvedev was the president of Russia, and Putin was, I don't know if it was the prime minister, what the job was. But anyway, they've since done away with that. So Putin's been the president before and ever since. And that's all. However, Medvedev is still deputy chair of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, which is actually like one of the highest decision-making bodies in Russia. It's not even like the National Security Council in the United States. It is essentially above the Duma is what they call their legislature. It's above that. It's above Congress. The Security Council is a smaller body, and it really is like, the media caricatures Putin as the dictator of Russia, and he's the guy that pulls every lever in the entire Russian government. No, there's more than one person has to be involved in the country of this size. So the Security Council is really the thing. And he's the deputy chair, the chair being Putin. So he's not just some nobody. He is a high-level Russian official. And for the past few years, he has been essentially Putin's bad cop on the Ukraine stuff. Putin being very polite and, very diplomatic. And Medvedev being quite the troll. He's got quite a reputation for that. Of course, there is his Twitter handle. You can go to x.com and read all the things he's been posting for the past few years. But never mind that. Here's what he posted on July 28th. Trump's playing the ultimatum game with Russia. 50 days or 10. This is right after Trump cut down the deadline for Russia to make a deal with Ukraine from 50 days to 10 or 12 days, which now became 10 days. I think it was on the 28th, actually. Trump made that announcement. 10 days. So Medvedev writes, Trump should remember two things. One, Russia isn't Israel or even Iran. And two, each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. Don't go down the Sleepy Joe road. So what's Medvedev's obvious point here is, Trump, you're acting like Sleepy Joe Biden. What was Joe Biden doing? Demanding Russia stop doing what they're doing. And if you don't, we'll sanction you. That's the game Joe Biden played, up to the point that, it wasn't like Joe Biden was pulling punches with Russia. They were imposing lots of sanctions and more sanctions, up to the point where at a certain level, sanctions become counterproductive. You don't want to hurt your own country with sanctions, do you? You know, so they stopped short at some point, which is what Trump's administration right now is kind of blowing right past. Because what they're talking about doing in, I guess it's what, 6 days now? 6 days from now, we'll see if they make good on their threats. Steve Witkoff's in Russia right now, by the way, probably trying to make a last-minute deal. But the threat is, if Russia and Ukraine don't reach some sort of deal in the next 6 days, then they're going to impose sanctions, not directly on Russia, because there's nothing more they can even do there, but sanctions on countries that trade with Russia, such as China, India, any country that buys Russian oil, for example. Anyway, I'll get back to that point in a second. But the point being, Medvedev is saying to Trump, stop threatening us. This is not good. It's just taking us closer towards war. You know, we elected Trump in part because he was supposed to walk away from this Ukraine conflict. You know, some of us even believe that we can make peace with Russia because this entire conflict was provoked by, you know, the great Russiagate lie, for one thing. That's what's so crazy about this whole thing. Right now, in another part of Washington, they are going back to Russiagate and proving that the entire 2016 election narrative about Russia hacking the election was a total fraud, which you would think would be a perfect opportunity for Trump to come out and say, you know, how much of our hatred for Russia stems from this completely disgusting Democrat lie? What did the American population, did the American people hate Russia in 2015? Were we even thinking much about Russia in 2015? No, it became a thing over this lie that the Democrats came up with the support of the deep state, that Russia hacked our election. Well, that turns to be a big freaking lie. What else happened in that span of time? Oh, that's right. Trump was impeached over what exactly? A phone call to Ukraine over what exactly? Investigating corruption surrounding Joe Biden and his family, involving that Ukrainian gas company, Burisma. Isn't it weird how all of the reasons why we're supporting Ukraine and hating Russia are tied to this 2016 election hoax? So what a perfect opportunity it would be right now for Trump to start to be breaking down that Democrat narrative and saying, hey, why are we fighting Russia in the first place again? Anyway, but we are. And Trump is threatening Russia with sanctions. I'll sanction you if you don't give us the terms we want and blah, blah, blah. And so Medvedev warning Trump, don't go down the Sleepy Joe road, which is the road he is going down. What happens in 6 days from now? He's going to impose these bone-crushing sanctions on Russia, to which China and India have both already said they will not abide by. China, of course, China's going to say no, we're not going to stop trading with Russia. We're going to ignore your empty threats. India, who knew? India, I think, to people that don't know a lot about Indian politics, India's been trying to be our friend for a very long time. They don't like to be committal. They don't like, they like BRICS. They're in BRICS. They're a founding member of BRICS, but they don't like China. They have a bad history with China, you know? Anyway, so India is always trying to kind of ride the fence. So a lot of people were thinking, well, maybe what India's going to do if Trump says he's going to sanction Russia is India might, you know, stop buying Russian gas, but then they'll just be buying Mongolian gas, Mongolian oil that just happens to be coming. Somehow Mongolian people have gotten oil and gas from Russia, and now it's coming to India, but it's not Russian gas anymore. It's Mongolian gas, you know, some kind of maneuver like that. But no, India came flat out and just said, no, we are not going to stop trading with Russia. We are a sovereign country. We'll not abide by your dictates. So, and of course, Brazil did the same thing when Trump threatened to tariff them over the Bolsonaro business. So this is already going down a bad path. And Medvedev's like telling Trump, hey, don't go down the Sleepy Joe road. So Trump, I think, didn't even hear of this, was paying no attention whatsoever. But who should happen to want to stick his nose into this business than the perfume princess, Lindsey Graham? And Lindsey Graham goes out and posts in response to Medvedev, To those in Russia who believe that President Trump is not serious about ending the bloodbath between Russia and Ukraine, you and your customers will soon be sadly mistaken. You will also soon see that Joe Biden is no longer president. Get to the peace table, says Lindsey Graham. So that was Lindsey Graham. Again, what Medvedev just say? Don't play the ultimatum game with us. And what does Lindsey Graham say? Get to the peace table. So what then happens next is Medvedev responds directly to Lindsey Graham. Here is what Medvedev wrote back. It's not for you or Trump to dictate when to get at the peace table. Negotiations will end when all of the objectives of our military operation have been achieved. Work on America first, Gramps, which is a nice reply. Highlights the fact that Lindsey Graham doesn't give two shits about the American people. All he cares about is getting rich on war. There's Scott Ritter below. Lindsey, what you know about Russia could fill a thimble. What you don't know about Russia could fill an ocean. Anyway, yeah, it's a damn shame Trump listens to you. It sure is. It is a damn shame. But anyway, so that's Medvedev calling out Lindsey Graham. And now, who does Lindsey Graham come crying to? Of course, Donald Trump. And Trump has to oblige because, you know, Lindsey Graham is kind of like his mama, his political mama. And Medvedev insulted his mama. So Trump responds back, I don't care what India does with Russia. They can take their dead economies down together for all I care. Boy, does that sound like cope. We have done very little business with India. Their tariffs are too high, among the highest in the world. Likewise, Russia and the USA do almost no business together. Let's keep it that way. And tell Medvedev, the failed former president of Russia, who thinks he's still president, to watch his words. He's entering very dangerous territory. And again, it's the same exact thing. Giving Russia an ultimatum. Let's see how well that works out. Russia knows we have no cards. They're winning the war. They're counting all of the destroyed NATO tanks and Patriot systems and, you know, Javelin missiles and Patriot missiles and what else? HIMARS missiles. Like they have an inventory of the destroyed Western weapons that have been thrown into the Ukrainian fire. And so Trump threatens, I guess, Russia. Let's keep it that. And by the way, of course, loss in all this is who cares about the American people? Let's keep it that way. Let's not do business with Russia. Why not? They're a rising global superpower. You know how much money American companies lost when we started sanctioning Russia, and all of our companies had to leave Russia? Now they want to get back in and they can't. So then Medvedev responds, not on X, interestingly, but on Telegram. And he posts this. This is July 31st. About Trump's threats against me on his personal Truth, quote unquote, Truth social media network, which he has banned in our country. That's a nice little jab right there. If some words from the former president of Russia trigger such a nervous reaction from the high and mighty president of the United States, then Russia is doing everything right and will continue to proceed along its own path. Ouch. And about India's and Russia's dead economies and entering very dangerous territory. Well, let him remember his favorite movies about The Walking Dead and about how dangerous the fabled dead hand can be. Yikes. So, bringing out the dead hand card is getting pretty serious. So if you guys don't know what the dead hand is, you should know. The dead hand is Russia's automatic nuclear reaction capability. It's actually called the perimeter. Here's what the dead hand is.
USA and UK launch a coordinated missile attack on Russia.
Here we go. Can I rewind this a little bit? Here we go.
If the USA and UK launch a coordinated missile attack on Russia, destroying all major cities and killing President Putin along with the entire military leadership. Russia has a backup system in place for retaliation, the dead hand. This automated system is designed to respond to such a scenario. Sensors across Russia will collect data on radiation, heat, and seismic activity, confirming a nuclear strike. The system will then await instructions from Moscow's command center. If no response is received, Dead Hand will assume the leadership has been wiped out. At that point, the system will autonomously launch approximately 4,000 nuclear missiles at the USA and its NATO ally, triggering global devastation. Destruction will be widespread, ensuring that even in death, Russia retaliates. This kind of automated retaliation system ensures that no matter the outcome, the consequences of such an attack would be catastrophic. In the end, the use of nuclear weapons guarantees mutual destruction, a grim reminder of the fragile balance of power.
Если даже наше государство полностью разрушит, автоматически наши ядерные ракеты полетят там. И весь мир мы перевернем, знаешь, рака поставим.
So, and we have the same thing, by the way. That's Americans also have a similar system. That's what mutual assured destruction is. By the way, that guy at the last clip there, that's Ramzan Kadyrov. He's a commander of the special forces in Russia. Yeah. So this is the threat of nuclear war. This is as serious as it gets, folks. Here's what Trump responded to that with. Oh, hold on. Here we go. Based on the highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions, just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. Words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Then he closes with this weird thing Trump does now. Thank you for your attention in this matter, or to this matter. So a couple of things to point out there. The first being, Dead Hand is, you guys just saw the video. It is a defensive response system to a decapitation strike. It's not a first strike system. It is a reactive system. It's if you strike Russia, which, by the way, is a threat that we've been making for the past several weeks now. There's been talk back and forth between Trump and Zelensky and Ukrainians about giving them missiles to strike Moscow. There have been 2 attempts on Putin's life carried out by Ukraine in just the last couple of months. And this is their way of saying, hey, back off. You know, remember when Biden first announced he was going to be sending, what kind of missile was it? It was not Tomahawks, but it was something. He was going to send some missiles to Russia that could potentially hit Moscow. And the only reason the Russians didn't react very, very, very harshly to that was because they knew Biden was on the way out the door. And they knew what Biden was up to was trying to sabotage any future peace deal they might make with Trump once he got into office. So they kind of let the whole thing go. But now Trump is the president, and he's going to be the president for another 3 years probably. And now he's making the same exact threats. And now Russia's coming back and saying, you do not want this to turn into a nuclear war. But he's got, people like Benjamin Netanyahu talking to Trump going, the decapitation strike's a really great tactic. It worked great on Nasrallah. Remember we assassinated the head of Hezbollah in Lebanon. They tried assassinating the president of Iran. They didn't succeed. They tried assassinating the supreme leader. That didn't work. But not for lack of trying. In fact, apparently the president of Iran said he was injured in one of the bomb strikes. So you got Israel telling Trump, the best way to take out Russia is just kill Putin. And this tracks, of course, with everything we've seen in the American mass media for the past 3 years. They obsess over Putin. They imagine Russia as a giant house of cards held together solely by Vladimir Putin. If Putin were to be assassinated, the whole country would dissolve. We could march right in. They would lose the war, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's no, actually, Russia has contingency plans in the event of these things happening, including nuking the whole world. That's how dangerous this is. To underscore this point, I'm going to actually add in a quick clip here I got from Scott Ritter, who was on Judge Napolitano's show. I think it was this past Saturday, which he doesn't usually even do a show on Saturday. But yeah, here's the clip.
Donald Trump threatening to end the world as we know it because of a mean tweet. But what's even more outrageous is that Donald Trump doesn't understand what Medvedev tweeted. Medvedev was telling Trump to knock it off with the dangerous threats, saying that, if you do this, America can end up looking like the Walking Dead because of the dead hand. The dead hand is a reference to the perimeter system, which is a defensive system put in place by the Soviet Union back in the 1980s, so that if they are ever struck preemptively by the United States, a first strike, by the way, the tactic to be used in a first strike is to bring Ohio-class submarines close to Russia's shores, fire off their Trident missiles on a flattened trajectory to avoid detection so you can strike the targets quicker, which is what Trump just actually appeared to order the U.S. Navy to do.
All right, are we back? Okay. We lost me for a second there. Let me rewind the clip for just a sec. I think this is about where we lost it. Here we go.
Because if Trump is dumb enough to launch an attack against Russia, the dead hand, the perimeter system, will ensure that all of Russia's strategic nuclear forces will be fired against the United States, even if Trump takes out Putin, the National Command Authority, etc.
So there you go. Stakes couldn't be more serious. The guy we elected to end the war is now threatening nuclear war. How messed up is this? So right now, Steve Witkoff's in Moscow. Wonder how that conversation's going. I think it's going to... all I can imagine, based on everything we've seen from this administration so far, is they can't get it through their heads that Russia is winning this war and therefore does not need to negotiate. Like, Russia wants to prevent Ukraine from ever posing a threat to it again. And we're like, hey, how about you let us have a ceasefire to allow Ukraine to be rearmed? And Russia's like, no, how about we'll allow a ceasefire if we don't allow Ukraine to be rearmed? No. How about instead of winning the war, you lose the war, Russia? How's that sound? How about instead of winning the war and replacing the Zelensky regime that threatened you and maybe taking over even more Ukrainian territory, how about this? How about you stop fighting the war and let us rearm Ukraine and provoke a bigger war? Why is Russia going to agree to this? It makes no sense at all. So there's this, and then as you heard from that funny clip in the beginning of the show with the babies, they're talking. Trump says, oh, yeah, Russia could be so rich. They're just spending all their money fighting these wars, killing people. As if the United States doesn't spend way more money on wars than Russia does. We just spend it a lot less effectively. But never mind that. It's this whole notion. He thinks he's going to trick Russia into signing some kind of deal with the United States because, man, making a deal with the USA will make Russia rich. And Russia's like, yeah, no, thank you. We see how you treat your trading partners. Yeah, right. We'll see. Mark my words. What's going to happen is Witkoff's going to come back empty-handed. And what's Trump going to do? What all this is, this whole past week of all the things we just saw, all of this is Trump caught in the trap the neocons set for him, and now he's screaming and yelling in agony because he's trapped. And even now, like, you guys ever, you ever seen those Chinese finger traps? Where you can't just tug your fingers out, you gotta push it in and then you pull it out. It's kind of like that. Trump can't take a step back and stop threatening and escalating because neocons all they know is escalation. And Trump has completely given in to the neocons because he's not focused on his voters anymore. He's focused only on the donors. And the donors are all saying, we want more war with Russia. If Trump comes out and says, I want to end the war with Russia, the donors get mad. The voters love it, but Trump doesn't care about the voters anymore. He cares about the donors. For some reason, despite the fact that he's in his last term, I guess you got the midterms to think about. But again, they've chosen the donors, so we don't have to. Great. I didn't want to spend the next year and a half shilling for Republican rhinos anyway. No, I don't have to. Because the donors got this, you know? Anyway, here's a comment I saw posted from someone on the internet talking about this whole exchange between Trump and Medvedev. This is late stage empire in meme form. A jittery president, cheeseburger in one hand, nuclear football in the other, lashing out at a tweet. Medvedev, the wry, unofficial spokesman of Moscow, tossed a few words into the digital ether about a nervous-sounding Trump, and America's commander-in-chief responded by moving the most apocalyptic weapons on Earth like a toy boat on a board game. 2 submarines? Two Whittle submarines. A photo op for a nervous American elite who believe their empire still commands the seas. But in Moscow, they sip tea and laugh quietly, knowing escalation dominance belongs to Russia. Washington can sail its steel coffins under the Arctic, but if real war comes, Russia's answer will arrive in silence, speed, and finality. No tweets required. Medvedev's trolling was the perfect judo throw. A reminder, the empire is nervous and that a few lines from a quote-unquote failed former president can send the White House into a nuclear cosplay spiral. The Kremlin didn't even blink. Why should it? The bear has already mauled NATO's illusions. Trump warns of unintended consequences. The only unintended consequence here is America's public humiliation, a spectacle where the emperor screams on social media while the world quietly notes Moscow is winning militarily, economically, and psychologically at a fraction of the cost. That's obviously a very pro-Russian take on things, very cynical. But how are they wrong? Dennis says, how about Denise says, how about Trump stop funding Ukraine and giving them weapons? How about Trump stopping AI? It's all theater. We're being destroyed. They're stealing our water, minerals, property, etc. Yeah, by the way, I've got a hard stop in 20 minutes, so let me try to cover some more news stories here because it has been more besides just this, but man, that's been pretty bad. So let's see what else is there. Since you mentioned this Epstein thing also. So now we've gone from we're going to prosecute all of the Epstein clients to there were no Epstein clients to we have now transferred Ghislaine Maxwell to a minimum security camp, where she gets to play with puppies all day long. That's what she's doing, roaming the expansive grounds, earning money to spend on cosmetics and training dogs to be service animals. Yes, that's right. Described as a luxury facility by her victims, Maxwell will be rubbing shoulders with other wealthy inmates and can spend the earnings from her prison jobs on cosmetics. They have freedom to roam the grounds with limited to no perimeter fencing to pen them in. There are gardening opportunities for the green-fingered criminals. The 37-acre all-female facility located 100 miles outside of Houston is home to 635 inmates, according to the prison's website. And, she can actually spend, somewhere it says here, she can spend the entire day training dogs. She gets to do water and mud play, keep them busy from morning until night with some kennel rest in between, Mrs. Howell said. So, guys, I know a lot of you work 9 to 5 jobs or more. Some people work from dawn to dusk, trying to put food on your table. The government comes and takes a 30-year check to spend on war. But you know what? If you just ran a child sex trafficking ring, you might end up being able to spend your entire day just playing with puppies. Yes, you get food, shelter, makeup, and puppies at American taxpayers' expense, and all you got to do is run a giant child sex slave trafficking blackmail ring. That's all. And obviously, why do you guys think Ghislaine Maxwell got sent to this paradise prison camp? Well, she's also, by the way, asking for a dismissal of the charges. She's appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court, asking for a pardon, asking for a commutation. And of course, the reason why is because she's giving testimony favorable to Trump. And that's all there is to it. So we've gone from locking up the perpetrators to there are no perpetrators to we might actually even let the one single person convicted of anything surrounding this incredible operation besides raping children, to control the governments of the Western world. This is what this is all about, you know. Who do you think Epstein was blackmailing and why? He was blackmailing billionaires to control their political spending. So our country being run by a pedophile blackmail ring, that's not getting any attention. Oh, meanwhile, by the way, something else happened. I should probably talk about. You guys may have seen this story. We posted on our X feed earlier this week. Hold on, let me just find it here. But remember the name Ryan Routh or Ruth? I don't know. He was the guy that tried to assassinate Trump. The second assassination. The first one, obviously, was the one in Butler. That guy is dead now. But there was another one, remember, while Trump was out golfing. And that was when this guy, Ryan Routh, get your stupid head out. Okay, here we go. The DOJ has classified evidence against wannabe Trump assassin Ryan Routh. The government asked for this. The judge granted it, saying that evidence in his trial for the attempted assassination of Trump could cause exceptionally grave damages to the national security of the United States, and sealed the evidence. What national security would be threatened by this guy's testimony? What is there some foreign country this guy was working for that we might want to that might be covered up here? What foreign country? Does it, I mean, is there a flag in this guy's hand? Yeah. What am I looking at here? Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember this story because it came out when this whole thing happened, when the guy was first arrested. Ryan Routh, besides being a Trump attempted assassin, was also at one point trying to recruit mercenaries to fight in Ukraine, for Ukraine. You can see here he's holding up his poster, begging the world to support Ukraine. So there's Ryan Routh. Denise says probably still working with the CIA. Yeah, why is this evidence being classified? Why is this evidence being sealed? What possible information against Americans could there be in this? I guess we won't know. The most transparent administration in history, folks. TM. By the way, speaking of Ukraine, here's an interesting story I came across this week. Mexico has warned Ukraine that some volunteers from Mexico may have joined the Ukrainian armed forces to learn how to fly drones and then pass this knowledge on to the Mexican drug cartel. You guys know Ukraine takes all comers. They love foreign mercenaries. They don't always pay them properly. But some of them, some foreigners, some brainwashed foreigners come on as volunteers. There's actually a guy, I meant to cover this story when I heard about the news about a month ago. There was a guy, an American, a Michigander from Brighton, Michigan, who was born in 2001, graduated from Brighton High School, went to Ukraine as a mercenary and was killed there. What a waste. What an absolute tragedy. But anyway, a lot of the mercenaries that Ukraine's taken are from Colombia. Strangely, they've had a really big outreach to the South American country of Colombia. Wonder why Colombia? Well, here's the story reported by the French publication Intelligence Online, which covers obviously intelligence-related stories. According to the story, the Mexican Intelligence Agency, the Mexican National Intelligence Center, or CNI, sent a confidential memo to the Ukrainian Security Service earlier this summer regarding Mexican volunteers. It said that some of the volunteers had joined the International Legion to gain advanced skills in the use of drones, in particular FPV drones. That's first-person video drones. You know, the drones you got a little video screen like a Nintendo Switch. You operate the drone, you can see in real time where the drone is. The SBU, that's the Ukraine Security Services, then launched an investigation that affected not only Mexicans, but also Colombians serving in the International Legion, particularly in the secret Tactical Group Ethos Unit. According to the publication, Ukrainian investigators suspect that some volunteers from Mexico and Colombia deliberately sought to enter training centers for FPV drone operators, bypass initial checks, and transfer the skills they acquired to transnational criminal organizations. Several Mexicans and Colombians showed exceptional interest in learning how to operate drones, ignoring all of the forms of training. Among them was a Mexican volunteer whom the SBU named Aguila 7, who joined the Legion in March 2024 under the guise of being Salvadoran. Aguila 7 completed a full cycle of training in drone courses in Lvov, where instructors noted his high level of training. He was fluent in analog transmitters, detected thermal blind spots, and anticipated radio electronics countermeasures. According to further investigation, Intelligence Online writes, it turned out that he was probably a member of GAFE, a Mexican Special Forces unit, some of whose former fighters later turned to crime and founded the Los Zetas drug cartel. In addition, a European security source quoted by the publication said that at least 3 former FARC, that's a Colombian rebel organization, fighters also passed through the International Legion with the help of Panamanian and Venezuelan documents. The case against the suspected volunteers is being handled by the technical division of the SBU, which is subordinate to the main counterintelligence department. And the quote said one of the SBU leaders, "We accepted volunteers with good intentions, but we must admit that Ukraine has become a global platform for the spread of FPV tactics. Some come here to learn how to kill with a $400 drone and then sell that knowledge to the highest bidder." Well, that's great. That's great. We have the Ukrainians giving drone training to Mexican and Colombian drug cartels. Let's keep that war going, shall we, folks? Mark says, "Greetings from Highland Park. Am I being anti-Trump today?" I'm being as factual as ever, Mark. And unfortunately, Trump has been anti-Trump this past week in some respects. But anyway, moving on. What else has happened in the past week? Let's see. Oh, the US Treasury is now accepting Venmo. So, in case you guys were concerned you haven't been paying enough money in taxes, you can now actually make donations right to the US Treasury, all by your own. So, you know, whenever any one of these rich liberal billionaires wants to come out and say, "I should pay more taxes," you can say, well, what's stopping you? You can actually just wire money right to Uncle Sam all by yourself. Of course, that's not what they really want to do. What they want to do is tax other people, of course, but that's just a nice way you can expose that ridiculous lie. Yeah, that's right. You can just donate your money to Uncle Sam in case you weren't paying enough, right, folks? That was the thing that came out. Another big story. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., one of the few outstanding, excellent people in the Trump administration, has just announced that mercury is now being banned in the vaccines, which, I don't know about you guys, but I find a pretty obvious follow-on to this headline here. Why was mercury in our vaccines in the first place? It's a chemical called thimerosal, which is a preservative, a mercury-based preservative still found in flu shots given to children and pregnant women, has now been fully banned in the United States. Which means, it's all these, if you've ever called someone a crazy conspiracy theorist over, like, the government poisoning the American population through things like fluoride and that sort of stuff. Ask yourself about why flu vaccines have mercury in them. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, how is that not the number one story of the year? That our vaccines contained mercury. All those vaccine conspiracies. Why would anybody be suspicious of the COVID vaccines when our existing vaccines were so perfectly safe? So perfectly safe. They put mercury in them. My God, folks. My God. All right. And let's see. Okay, we have to cover this story because it's the thumbnail, obviously. Trump's deal with Ursula von der Leyen. A fake deal with a fake dictator. So Ursula von der Leyen, I'm sure you guys saw lots of headlines about this. A $1 trillion deal with Europe. Trump went to Scotland, and hilariously, major props to Trump for this. He goes to Scotland to meet with the Europeans, but he makes them come to his golf club and therefore makes them the visitor in his house. Hilarious. And then von der Leyen agrees to all of the conditions that Trump puts on them, still starts with a tariff anyway, promises there are no tariffs on American vehicles, and they promise they're going to buy what they say, $100 billion or more of American energy, liquid natural gas, something like that. Which analysts kind of pointed out pretty quickly. The U.S. doesn't have that much to sell. So, but the media's whole take on this, rightly so, was this was an absolute humiliation for Europe. And that makes me happy. Not for Europeans. They don't deserve this, but their evil government has been shown yet again to be just completely inconsiderate of its own of the European people. And frankly, they deserve to be humiliated. Ursula von der Leyen deserved to be humiliated, and they all were. Keir Starmer from Britain, of course, was there, totally humiliated. The Europeans were just absolutely, they are furious at Ursula. And that's all great. That's all great. I'm happy about that. Although there is a contrarian take on this whole thing, which is this. The Europeans gave Trump promises that may or may not actually materialize. For one thing, as I said, they actually can't. We don't have as much oil and gas to sell them as they appear to have committed to. But at the same time, what one thing do these Europeans obsess about more than anything else? More than anything else, they care about one thing, and that is keeping Project Ukraine going. And that is what Trump appears to have actually given them. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens next weekend, folks, won't we? Whether or not Trump carries out his big bad sanctions threat. But as we know already, the biggest countries are already saying they're not going to abide by the sanctions anyway. Anyway, not China, not India. And by the way, a lot of other countries might play that same game, buying oil from, Turkey. That's actually Russian oil. That's the way that goes. Sanctions are easily avoided. Just means they're gonna have to pay more. What else has happened? Oh yes, let's not forget about this tweet. I have to show this. This and Mark, I know you're a big Trump supporter. Explain this then. This is what Trump just posted the other day. Wow. Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada. And by the way, Trump did actually follow through on this threat and raise the tariff on Canadian products from 25% to 35%. Now, keep in mind, who actually pays tariffs are Americans. right? Like it is a tax on imports. When you import something from a tariffed country, the importer pays the tariff. Now, of course, some of those costs get passed on to the supplier. That's the way that goes, but it's supply and demand. So Trump has announced explicitly that he has tariffed Canada because they are backing statehood for Palestine, which, by the way, means only, I mean, what does that mean exactly? They are backing statehood. That means in the United Nations, Canada would vote to recognize Palestine as a state. Okay. How does that affect the American people compared to tariffs? I mean, shouldn't the one and only question regarding any tariff policy with any country be, is this good for Americans? Is it in America's interest to make it more difficult to trade with our nearest neighbor, with whom we trade a lot? And here you see the comments here on the side. So we can't freely trade with our neighbors unless they side with his donor's preferred desert tribe 6,000 miles away. MAGA has never been more blatantly co-opted by Make Israel Great Again. I mean, it's in black and white here, folks. Why? And by the way, this is not the only thing. Look, he's also tariffed Brazil over Lula going after Bolsonaro. I agree that it is a terrible crime. Is a terrible crime that Brazil is persecuting Bolsonaro. I also agree that this judge, this Alexander Moraes, this guy in Brazil, is like an evil, demonic figure. But that's Brazil's problem. That's the only question we should have with our tradings with Brazil is this in the American people's interests? And actually, you know, Trump has to make a legal argument for these tariffs because it's all based on emergency powers. And Trump is arguing, or has argued, that he can impose all of these tariffs unilaterally because it's an economic emergency because of our trade imbalances. But now he's put in writing, that he is sanctioning Canada, tariffing Brazil for obviously political reasons. All right. Mark Ashley Price says, you just anti-Trump, Adam. That's all you is. Mark, I'm sorry, man. Look, I do not want to be the bearer of this news. I did not make up this post. How is this a good thing for America? That Trump is sanctioning Canada because of their opinion on Palestine. I don't know. Anyway, folks, that will have to do it for us for tonight. I have a hard stop, unfortunately, but we will try to catch up again soon, and I will talk to you all then. Thanks, as always, for all you guys do for liberty. Until then, peace.